this afternoon. I don't know what our floor, you never really know what our floor's time is going to look like. We're starting at 1. I would say just be ready to be back here 10 minutes after, unless somebody says otherwise. So that will be the default plan. And then tomorrow we start the day on the floor. Again, don't know what it's going to look like or how long it's going to run. We don't have anything, I don't think we have anything scheduled tomorrow other than possibly wrapping up H205.
Yes.
And the housekeeping bill, we may hold off until next week. So,
Very excited. Very excited.
I think I'm just gonna spike them onto my wall in the woodshed.
yeah. So now we'll turn our attention to, and hopefully wrap up, or at least get one step closer to our recommendation on the budget. And Mike's here with us. Mike, if you want to come up to the chair, and we have been working from a modified version of the worksheet that the Appropriations Committee sent us. We've got, I don't know if everybody has it in front of them or not, but it's populated with the dollar amounts that were budgeted for both ongoing and one-time programs and proposals.
Is that on your committee website?
It is not on our committee website. However, I will, how about if I email it to you? Would that?
That'd be great.
Okay. And then it's also got we're unmuting now. Thanks.
Sorry. Didn't see that.
Okay. All right, so we haven't done anything. Those who are watching and wondering what we were saying, I was talking but not saying anything important. So stand by here. Usually it's not true. All right, so Mike, I've just emailed you that. See if you,
So right now the email's got a 5 to 10 minute delay inside the,
really? All right, well, you'll get it. I think we can still begin the conversation. Here. So,
no, I got it.
you got it, okay. Good. So we, committee members, between yesterday and today may have been thinking about the various options that we have here, and I will just open it up to see whether anyone has anything to add beyond what we heard yesterday, now that you've sort of had another chance to talk. Representative Wilson.
I have one quick question. If we vote on the whole bill, there's a lot of the big numbers that I don't like big numbers when you get millions and millions, but there's parts of it that I like, Salvation Farms and 205 and a Vermont Food Bank. Those I would vote for, but the rest of it I'd vote against. So does that mean I'd vote against the whole thing?
I would say we'll maybe wait and see what the whole thing actually looks like. We want to hear from everyone, and we'll try and shape something that has the most support. It may end up that we send our letter to the appropriations committee and we'll say, you know, the vote was this many approved it all and this many didn't. We can certainly say some members of the committee felt strongly about these proposals and even if they, so I think we can make sure that's communicated. Yeah.
And really quickly, our additions, guardrails, you spoke about, are those being discussed now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why we've got Mike here to help us think about that. So before we turn to that though, other folks with specific thoughts, yeah.
I guess my only question is, being a new person to the whole budgeting process, are we really thinking of funding everything by grabbing the 10 million from the ag department within the governor's budget? Or are there other ways that we can fund some of these?
So first of all, just bear in mind that there are two different 10 millions. One, as you said, is in the ag and one is in the other departments. Yeah, commerce. They're both one time. So not everything that we might be interested in doing really can be categorized, you know, that way. If there are other one-time appropriations that we want to recommend and feel strongly about them, then we would probably be well advised to say, here's where we think that money should come from. And the one, I mean, we can certainly say we think that money should come from some other program that's not within our jurisdiction. It's less likely to be, looked at seriously, I think, if we do that.
And then can we say we are in support of the food banks, 3 million, but feel like it should come over from Health and Human Services rather than ag?
So Health and Human Services is making a recommendation on that. We can, and I can tell you what it is. We can support any other recommendations that any other committee is doing. We know about this one. And it's probably most helpful if we say we support what they're doing.
Okay.
Yeah. Representative O'Brien.
Something like VHCB, do we just make a recommendation to fully fund them and not raid their piggy bank?
If that's the consensus of the committee, yeah. And that's the 27.8 million that's listed here. That's the full funding.
As opposed to like around 15 is what.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quick question, on something like the serve, learn and earn, which was falling between one time and base,
Yeah.
what do we do with that?
Yeah, so that has an easy answer, I think. The Commerce Committee downstairs is working on a workforce development bill. They are planning to, I believe, include this funding for this program.
Oh, good.
In their recommendation or as part of that bill, which will be ultimately, have to appropriate it. So I think if we want to support that, we can indicate that in our letter to appropriations. But it doesn't need to come out of,
Right.
I think it doesn't need to be something that would pull out of something.
It does seem very workforce.
Yeah.
Chairman Durfee, do we ever write a letter, let's say we have a 11-0 or a 10-1 or whatever vote that we support that collective with that you just were talking about involves the Youth Conservation Corps and
That's
or Salvation Farms or allow the committee directly to the committee that's actually handling that appropriation.
Yeah, I think that we will put that.
Sort of a formal letter that.
It'll be part of a formal letter, that includes all of our recommendations. Yeah. And so to reiterate, that is that program has also been presented downstairs in the Commerce Committee. They are, I think, they like the idea and they're working on a piece of legislation that pulls together a number of different proposals to address the workforce problem, and that fits into that larger framework that they're working on. So we don't need to, I think we don't need to say, we like that and we're going to have to find the money from somewhere else. I think if we get a little bit of an out on that one and can say, we like that idea. We hope that you'll support the proposal that is coming from the Commerce Committee. Yeah. So we have already, I'm going to look at the list here and sort of walk down through the local purchasing incentive. I think we've talked about that enough that I felt that I could put in the committee supports $500,000 for that initiative. I then went so far as to say that I thought the committee had worked on page 205 yesterday at a point that we would be supportive of $250,000 to be budgeted to fund that new program. Again, this is base funding here, both of these examples. And then the Farm to School program, $500,000 that was requested in the budget proposal from the administration. We heard support for that. I felt that the committee was on board with that. So that's why those first three numbers are in there. I didn't want to go any further, and it doesn't indicate that I didn't think the committee felt strongly about the things that are still on the list, but just wanted to plug those three in because I thought, we've talked about those and give us a starting point. So I'd like to hear from about anything else that you see on this first list here, again, recognizing this is base funding. Representative Levitt.
I can't find it, but can someone talk to me? Oh, I see. It's $1 million and then 4 million for working lands. Got it. So it's $1 million and 3 million for working lands for a total of 4 million.
So, right, so this is a little bit, it's not complicated, but there's a little bit here to just flesh out. So there is $1 million in the administration's proposal for base funding for this program. So it would be $1 million, not just this year, but going forward. And then the administration's also said, and we have enough one-time money, we'd like to put $3 million into the program for this year, just this year. And then next year it would be, back to 1 million.
So technically then that wouldn't have to come out of anything because that's already been budgeted.
Yes.
Okay.
However, and this is the bit of complexity is that the down below in the one-time section, there is we have heard requests that we take the entire 4 million and put it into the base. So, yeah. So in the section we're looking, I got that. Sorry, I wasn't very clear there after trying to clear it up. The $4 million that you see up in the top section represents the request that we've had from other parties to bring the base funding up to 4 million. And then one-time funding that the governor's proposed is what we see down below for 3 million. So there's a couple of different proposals there. We have to try and reconcile them given the parameters of what's available, what we think is available. John?
Mike, do you remember what base funding was for working lands last year and then how big their kitty was? Because I think there was some one-time money, right?
Did you not get a crosswalk from the agency?
We did. Yeah, it's in there somewhere. So in the Agency of Ag's budget, they had a long presentation with 40 some slides.
Okay.
there were several.
Okay, we can find that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just to give us some context, it'd be interesting to, because I know every year we've been here, it's gone up and up and up.
Yeah, yeah. So I think historically it was, less than $1 million. This past year, it might have been $1 million. There was also the one-time funding, putting it into the 5 million range
Right.
this current fiscal year.
I have that presentation. I'll find that in a minute.
Okay.
That sounds like if we follow the governor's, it would actually be less money than they had last year.
Yes,
They had
and in fact, no
2
one
million.
has proposed, whether it's one-time or base funding, we're only hearing $4 million for next year, which
Right.
will be less than what they're currently working on.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not finding it. Did you say 5.2 last year?
Yeah, I'm looking at their fiscal year, 2022 by the numbers. They had matching funds, 11.2 million, total funds distributed, 5.2 million, and 86 awards were made, but that, I'm not finding any other number that says how much they actually got.
That could be some outside money,
Yeah,
I guess.
they got a lot of matches.
Well, all right, we'll let Mike try and find that, but I think it's in that,
Okay.
that's the magnitude anyway, yep. So, still at the top here, base funding. So land access, we haven't talked a lot about. This is money there was no, I don't think, any request in the budget. Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, there is money there, it's not filled in, so that there should be a 15 million, I think, number next to that 27.8. Food Bank, we were just talking about fairs and field days. I think we're all comfortable with 200,000 there. Unless I hear any objections.
I'm a little bad on my vision, but it looks like it says 2 million.
Yeah, no, there's an extra zero in there. Yeah, take
Typo.
that. Your vision is better than my typing was.
Okay, that's,
Isn't that already in the budget though? Weren't they coming to sort of just let us know
Yep.
this is why it's important?
Yep. So I only listed it because it's come up so many times that I wanted to be sure that nobody here thought we were not endorsing it. There are other things in the budget that we, haven't really talked about, and we're not going to be, saying one thing or the other about them. This one, since we talked about it so much, that's why it's here. The conservation districts, so then just looking down through here, the other sort of big item is the conservation districts and the request there. I know there's support for that generally in the committee. The request is for 3 million. We can certainly put that in. The appropriations committee is going to be asking where does that money come from? We've already indicated up above, request for one program, the local purchasing incentive that wasn't budgeted. And then just while we're in the section, the Sustainable Jobs Fund, there's a request to add 100,000. And then there's the request to add the 3 million to working land. So I would maybe just sort of stop here and say, all right, if we want to convey to the appropriations committee that we have priorities on which of these would get funded first, how do we want to list those?
In order.
Well, they can't read our minds. So if we do have a priority list, we need to let them know. If we simply say these are all important, equally important, then they will have to, if there's any additional funding available, they'll have to figure out how to use it. Yeah.
We potentially could make all or part of the conservation district pass a one-time too, right?
Yes, although, yeah, I mean, yes, we certainly could. A lot of the money there, I mean, if you look back at their memo, which they had a nice detailed breakdown of why they came up with that 3 million figure. And some of it, I think, might be like setting up, like hiring a position or more than one position, and then how would they fund that?
Right.
Intended to be an ongoing position.
Yeah, I would just add on to that, I think a lot of what we heard from them in testimony was about their needs being things like being able to offer benefits to their employees, those sort of ongoing needs that will make them more able to fulfill the things we ask them to.
So, I mean, I just will put out there that I think we would like to be able to support all these programs, and they're all ideas that we would endorse. And this is the hard part of the job, just because if we don't do it, somebody else will make a decision and we might say, ooh, I wish we had said, this is what we really want to make sure it gets done.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So, reversing it, rather than looking at what I would prioritize, what I would deprioritize to make room for the other things that we've agreed on or not collectively, I would deprioritize the agricultural development grant of 10 million and use that money to fund these programs. So I would put that at the bottom of my priority list. I mean,
so are you suggesting that we use it to fund the other one-time items, or that we?
yes.
Yeah, okay, all right. So I would say hold that thought.
Okay.
Just because I want to try and have us think about, we can't completely separate them, shouldn't completely separate them, but I think we want to also try and think about them as here's one group of proposals and here's the other group. And the first group, if it's base funding, there needs to be, an ongoing way to support that.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. The other area I'm looking at in the top, the VHCB, 7,800,000. And granted, I have a bill on that wall over there to fully fund them. It's not, but they're doing pretty well in this time for housing and conservation, not just from us. But that would be another area where the conservation district's 3 million, serve learner, and maybe that's in a different committee, but some of these other funds, we could reduce some of that request.
So historically, I think that's exactly what's happened with the VHCB, that the other areas of government have been able to make a forceful argument that they need some of that money. So we could make the same argument here. I'm not sure that it would get us very far, just given.
I'm asking, coming from a position of ignorance, quite frankly. I don't know how this process works.
Yeah, well, to a certain extent, most of us are coming from a place not too far from from your place. Josie.
Isn't serve, learn, and earn? It's coming from commerce, so.
Yeah, so I think we can sort of
I don't need to worry about it.
You put an asterisk next to that one. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah. Yeah.
So I take it there's no sort of nuclear trigger, let's say, on stealing from VHCB's fund, because it started and it must be ongoing. Whereas some other things, like we heard, I think on the ed fund, they're sort of like, you better not touch this, or property tax goes away.
Yes.
So, is that something that we should be thinking about too? I mean, if we want to fully fund it, to put some teeth in there so that this doesn't just keep happening.
Interesting idea. Yeah, yeah. So add a clause that says if you don't fully fund it, then something blows up.
Right.
Yeah. Something is repealed. Yeah. What would you like to repeal?
I think just leave it vague like that.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way Putin acts.
Oh,
Um,
I'm sorry, for the purpose of my notes, what was that decision? Or that
I think
suggestion?
it was left hanging.
Okay.
Hangs a good one.
Suggestion though was that if we think that we want to say that VHCB should receive their full funding and not have this continuous process where it's taken away, then we should put teeth into that and say, if they don't receive the full funding, something happens.
Yeah, I like that.
Mike, thank you for clarifying that. Representative Rice, do you have any other input that you'd like to share?
I don't. I think I'm sort of on board with the collective conversation that's been going on. I would say I agree that, you know, if there are things that we want to fund that are one time, then I would agree that they should be funded from the 10 million, not because I have a particular passion against the 10 million, but because it's been made clear that that's the place that we might successfully be able to say these things could actually be funded, so.
Okay. And so in a moment, I think we'll turn to looking at that at the one time, but we will need to, and I don't want to go too long into lunch hour. And I don't know what the floor is going to look like, but we will need to, before we all go home today, sort of reach a point where we're ready to wrap this up. So I'm just going to keep going around. Representative Cole, do you have anything that you want to say in support of prioritizing any of the things on the base, at sort of the top of the chart?
I think you all have done a good job and they're all very important, but I think I liked Mike's point there with looking at the one time from the 10 million first and then proceeding from there.
I guess.
Yeah.
We briefly yesterday talked about how we could make a decision that though it's not ideal to fund things that are based with one-time funds, it might be better in some cases than not funding them at all. So that could be part of the conversation is saying, you know, maybe we do say take from this 10 million to fund this thing and we talk about it next year, how we
Right.
I mean, I think Universal School Mills sort of worked that way. It's like there was money, we did it, then there was surplus, we did it, and now it has a certain momentum, so it can get to that base conversation.
Right, they get to sort of prove their own theory of importance, yeah.
So as it relates to, so are you thinking about the Working Lands Initiative?
For instance, yeah, I guess, you know, we could. I guess to me, there's also it's maybe only a semantic difference whether we say, yes, fund it with 4 million base, knowing that 3 million are actually one-time funds, or we say fund it 1 million base and 3 million one time, you know.
Yeah. Okay, Representative Supranant, are you, anything else you want to add to this?
No, nothing new. I would just really like to see the conservation districts as the number one priority.
Okay.
As base,
At base,
where does that money come from?
from the 10 million from the Agency of Agriculture's proposed budget. I think that work could really work in tandem together. I could see it being equally beneficial.
Could I ask, when you say it's going to come from the Agency of Agriculture's budget, what that means?
From the hopeful request of the $10 million for the agency's
Of the $10 million.
processor granting program for the 3 sectors.
All right, so that's not their budget. That's not their operating budget. That's like one-time money.
Right.
Yes, from that one-time money is where I'd like to see that come from.
Because if you take from their budget, people lose their jobs.
We will not
Right.
print a budget just from this one time.
Okay.
Yes.
So we would be saying, we'll fund this out of one-time money that's available this year, and then beyond that,
Cross that bridge when we get there.
yeah, we're not looking past that. Okay, Sustainable Jobs Fund, requesting an additional 100,000 to their base.
I say yes.
I'll keep going. Representative Graham. Any thoughts you want to add, priorities or? Anybody who hasn't spoken?
Does that one have overlap with the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development as well?
Sustainable Jobs Fund?
Yeah. or
I don't think that they're, they may look at it. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Sounds like it should be our, well, then
We're
we've
the
heard a lot from
primary,
them. Yeah.
I would say, yeah.
I have a similar question on 205. We're asking for base, but that would mean getting it from the general fund or a similar thing.
So
Fund it for 1 year, hope for the best ongoing.
Maybe Mike can help us with that, understand what does it mean to ask, as we have talked about doing here, in H205 to appropriate $250,000.
So basically, if you pass 205 with that appropriations committee is gonna strip it out. And if they support it, which is not a guarantee, because they, whenever you put something in that's not in the governor's budget, it's not a guarantee. They'll look for that money. They could take it from that 10 million one time from the development grants. They could take it from the rural industry program. They'll look for the money somewhere. That's what they'll do.
Is that somewhere not likely to be funding ongoing government programs, operations in a large sense?
Depends on if it's gonna be in the governor's budget next year. So if you get it in the budget this year, there's no guarantee that the governor will recommend it next year within the agency's overall budget. So you might have to do the same thing next year, find the 250 or whatever number next year until it gets embedded in the agency's budget. And it has happened. There are programs there's something called the Capital Equipment Assistance Program for Water Quality. It started off as a session law program called the Farm Agronomic Practices Program. And over time, because it was popular, it got more money in session law, and then they decided to put it in statute, and then it got embedded in the governor's budget. I mean, it does happen.
Okay. All right, so helpful, thank you. So now let's just look at the rest of the list, one-time funding. We have talked about quite a bit. And I know Representative Tubman would like to say something before we wrap up about language and guidelines and so forth. But while we're still thinking about the budget in terms of numbers and understanding that we can ask for whatever we want, there's lots of one-time money available this year across the entire government, but other people are also aware of that and making the requests. So we should be trying to make a reasonable request, I would say. Open to thoughts here. Representative Levitt.
Okay, I'm curious why the electric vehicle charger inspections is on us in ag. And also, I don't recall anyone talking about food safety inspection database for 1 million. Can someone And crop damage, did I miss that?
Those are all things that, so we haven't really spent a lot of time on them. They're all things that were in that long presentation.
Oh, got it.
So I can tell you about the EV chargers. The agency's weights and measures division is the entity that regulates meters like that. And they have this proposal to get equipment for that purpose. And that's what that is.
Okay.
And then in going into the future, they have a proposed fee on electric vehicle chargers that will pay for the cost of this going into the future.
Okay.
It's a $25 fee.
Is there, I mean, I'd love to hear the committee's thoughts on if we divided the 10 million into 3 buckets, so it's maple, meat, produce, you know, which of those 3 rise to the top? You know, if we start dividing it up like that.
Money elsewhere anyway. Sounds like the committee wants to spend that $10 million elsewhere.
Right.
I think
It won't be a program.
if we spend some of the money elsewhere and not all of it, would we recommend the remaining be spent
have
on some of,
3.3
you
left,
know,
is that-
specifically some parts of that, but not all.
If we fund what I think we're gonna fund, we're gonna take 6.25 million out of that budget. So that
Potentially one
leaves-
of those programs, right?
3 million something, so maybe we ditch Maple.
How are you getting that?
Well, I made my little spreadsheet and I could be bad at math, but local purchasing, H205, farm to school, land
Farm to
access,
schools in the governor's budget.
it's in the governor's budget, so we'll take it out. Land access, conservation districts, sustainable jobs fund, and Salvation Farms.
So, the local purchasing,
Which one's in the governor's budget?
local purchasing incentive is that in the ag or I think that's education? So,
It is.
yeah, so that's, we don't have to take that out of,
General fund?
Yeah, that's what I.
Yeah.
so we don't have to take that out of the 10 million grant proposal.
So both farm to school and local purchasing are already taken care of.
Yeah, they're both taken care of in a sense,
Got it.
in the sense that we don't need to deduct them.
Oh, that makes it much better.
Um,
And the field days is already in the budget. They just came to make sure we wouldn't take it away.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the $100,000 that we heard request from the Sustainable Jobs Fund is not in the, it's 100,000 more than's in the budget. And if we say we want to fund that, it has to come from somewhere.
And that's 300,000 then, right? Because it's 100 and 200,000. I included them in my number, so let me do math
I
again.
think it's 100 and 100,
100 was included.
Yeah.
They want 200.
they want 200, yeah.
Oh, 200 total.
Incremental $100,000.
Got it.
So I'm just trying to take a cue from you as to when I can open my mouth and start spieling. And I'll try to keep it short.
Okay, well, but hold.
I will, I'm just waiting for you.
I will give you your cue. I'll be very blatant about it. But no, I think while we're talking about the money, the dollars, let's stay focused on that. And, you know, recognizing that even $100,000, if we say we like this program, will come from somewhere, will have to come from somewhere. Doesn't mean it will ultimately have to come from the grant program, but it comes from some one-time money. So, in addition to that, then we've said possibly 3 million for conservation districts, take it from one-time money.
3 million?
That's the number that's been requested. I'm trying to get to Representative Levitt's $6 million number.
Oh, well, no, it's actually now, hang on, because I messed up a little. It is now 5.1 million.
Okay, so trying to get to the 5.1. The other big item there, I think, is 1.2 for the land access.
Yeah.
John?
appropriations, are they a committee who could say, from now on, we're gonna move local purchasing incentive from general fund dollars to the ed fund? Or does it need like statute actually to be passed for that sort of thing?
No, they can do that, but they like some statutory direction. They can draw the money from where they want it.
They can pull it out of the transportation fund?
Not the transportation fund because that has bonding limits on it. Any bonded money has to be used for capital projects. So there are limitations. But otherwise, if it's general fund money, they can swap it.
They can swap it.
Yeah.
Are there other big buckets that have to do with schools that come out of the general fund? Not the ed fund?
Well, I mean, not the ed fund?
Right.
No. It's basically the ed fund and the agencies of ed's general fund appropriation.
It's just that the history of how that ended up from general fund dollars is sort of curious.
It was a policy decision by you all. That's how it started. They had to get the money and they found it in general fund and it's been general fund since.
Okay, so now we're saying roughly $5 million between 3 or 4 different programs that we might want to put in other one-time requests, leaving $5 million in, if we take it all from the ag grant program. So you asked Representative O'Brien if we whittle that $10 million down to some other number, whether we want to be providing any direction on what sort of uses for it. That was, I think, a good question to think about next. Anybody care what you had?
I would think that discussion would take place with the Department of Agency of Ag and how they develop the program.
So we could leave it up to them.
No, have input on how they do it, I think. Be input to them, not the appropriation.
Okay. I think that if we want, I mean, we can certainly give them input, but if we want to be specific about it, if we want to, then I think we also have that option.
Yeah, I mean, recommend to the pros to put 9 million to that program. Agencies,
Agriculture development.
So, just again, this conversation.
Yeah.
Could we say to approach 4.9 million for agricultural development grants specifically, for instance, for meat processing and produce? Would that be relevant? Would that, then make its way to the actual program?
Relevant in what sense?
Relevant to Rodney's point is, don't make this guidance to approach, this is for the agency.
Yeah.
And I'm saying,
Yeah.
is making that guidance to approach a path that gets into the agency?
We can put it in our letter and say this is specifically how we would like to see it. Then if it's, then appropriations presumably would write that language into the bill, into the big bill. Mike, if that's not, if I'm misstating anything about the process.
If you want to recommend that it's going to be used for that purpose, then it's about how specific and detailed you want to be. What they'll probably do if they do it is they'll put it in the E sections, kind of the language sections, where they say, in addition to whatever the agency has appropriated, 5 million is appropriated to them for the purposes of establishing a program to do business development grants for slaughter and produce. And then it's a question of what detail you want to get into.
Okay. So, just then stepping back to sort of at a higher level, policy-wise, do we feel like we'll just want to leave it as is and, or provide any direction or focus on which areas? So now I'm going to okay, John, and then I'm going to let Representative Templeman.
No, I just feel historically in this committee, what we've heard the most about challenges and bottlenecks is meat processing by far.
Okay.
And even this time when we, our farmer engineer who came in with his plan for a modular slaughtering facility, seems like this would be exactly the kind of grant that would help them out.
Did you say a modular one?
Yeah.
A mobile one?
Mobile, it was sort of.
I don't know if it was mobile, it was
It's gonna get
small.
around Act 250, I think.
Not mobile, yeah.
No, they were small, like a microprocessor.
Although, I guess that was actually something that was funded by a working lands.
It was
It was.
funded by a working lands grant, yeah.
And
But maybe to propagate them, so we had four.
Do they sell processed meat from it?
That's the idea, yeah.
It's still in construction.
That's not actually being used yet, is it?
No, they're building it.
Yeah.
Do they know what the rules are under the USDA Federal Meat Inspection Program? You do?
Imagine so, yeah.
Yeah, they,
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
you got a.
I think it's all kosher, yeah.
Inspector room.
well, there's no rabbit.
Oh my God. That's a good point.
The big thing is it needs hot water and a place for the wastewater to run to.
Yeah. So why don't we so at 1 o'clock, we probably should be on the floor and we want to, I think some people have a meeting maybe that they're trying to get to. I want to let Representative Templeman say what he wants to share. I'm just going to say, I think maybe that what we'll need to do is come back after the floor and we'll have things maybe tied up pretty cleanly. I want to think a little bit more. I want to have all of us think a little bit more about putting all of this money, what we're ongoing requests into one time and just be sure that makes sense, that it's workable. It's a lot of funding that I think we also have felt. I mean, I haven't heard anybody say that we think it's a bad idea for meat processing or that it's not a great idea for even for the produce processing. I've heard some questions about the maple. So that's just where I am at the moment. Okay.
Well, given that it's noon, maybe we should pick this back up like when you're saying, and I can start then,
That's fine, yeah,
because we do need to go somewhere.
okay.
Can I answer the working lands question that Representative O'Brien had? And thank you to Amy for getting me the information.
Yeah.
Last year, they got an additional, wait a minute, hold on, that's not the one I want to read. Their base was 594,000 plus 5 million in one time, 3 million was from ARPA and 2 million from the general fund.
Just sort of then, last question. If the committee decided that it really did want to make, to recommend $4 million for working lands in the base, we've heard that, we've been asked to consider that.
You're gonna have to get it somewhere else from the base.
Somebody is going to have to get it from somewhere else. Yeah, and we don't see the big picture the way appropriations does. So that somebody would be appropriations presumably.
Right, they're gonna have to find it in the base budget, which is taking away from another division or taking away from another program within the ag development division.
Yeah, okay. All right, which is part of what they do. I mean, they've gotten requests like this, I'm sure, every year from all committees.
Here, and then they fight it out in conference committee and it's the same thing they do there.
Okay, anybody have anything to wrap up with other than that? Okay, so we'll plan to be back here then after the floor, whenever that is. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Anybody have anything pressing you need to get to tonight?
After floor, the floor goes till 6, no, but
If we don't do it tonight, I'm not sure when we do it, so.
got it,
I
okay.
don't know, I can be here late,
I think
not
it's
tomorrow.
half hours.
We'll try to be ready to, like, I think everyone said all they want to say, sounds like it. So we'll try to put this into a format that everyone's good with and not spend too much time in.